Well, hello, and welcome to Working Lunch, the SLO Chamber's weekly series where we get to sit down with key community leaders and enter the weekend feeling a little more connected to our community in these times of distancing and separation. I'm Jim Dantona, President and CEO of the SLO Chamber, and today you'll get a peek behind the curtain of what's happening in our agricultural community through my conversation with Executive Director of SLO County's Farm Bureau, Brent Burchett. Brent and I actually arrived in our new jobs in SLO within a few weeks of each other in early 2019. And similarly, Ann Steinhauer at SLO Coast Wine arrived at that time. Joel Peterson had taken on a new role at the Paso Wine Alliance. He'd been here for a little longer than us, but he had a new role. But we immediately got labeled the new kids on the block. Unlike me and the rest of the new kids, it was a little harder for Brent to blend right in, as his Kentucky accent always gave away his first home. Bringing key insights from years in local, state, and federal levels of government around agriculture, Brent now represents the farmers of SLO County, building understanding for the industry, which, as of 2019, contributes at least $2.5 billion to our local economy. I'm so looking forward to talking to Brent about ways COVID-19 is affecting local farmers, and maybe most importantly for all of us, get his recommendations for some Kentucky bourbon. Brent, thank you so much for being with us today.
Jim Dantona, my pleasure, sir. Thank you, sir. I wonder what accent you're talking about, Jim. I don't have any accent. You guys all sound funny to me. No, I am just tickled to death to be here. And yeah, it's crazy to think we've been here a year and a half. Is that?
Time flies when we're having a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Somebody called the other day, like, I guess you guys have been slowed down with this COVID. I was like, it doesn't feel like it. We're working weekends. But no, my pleasure to be here. And first, I should say, you're having me on here today, but SLO Chamber has just been such a huge partner. The resources that are coming out of your all's office, I steal as much as possible. So if we've got chamber staff listening, know that your time and efforts are well spent, and they are helping the agriculture industry as well.
Wow, thank you so much. And it's amazing because we know all of the amazing things that are going on out there and the struggles that are happening between industries. And before we jump into kind of what's happening in agriculture, tell us, where are you zooming in from today, and what's on the menu for lunch?
All right, so we are at the office today. We had done some teleworking for a while, but we're a essential industry in agriculture, so it's important for us to be able to hear and still be able to reach out to our farmers. So we are at the office today, and she's over here hiding, but I've got my fiance, Kai, just slip in here real quick. This is Kai. She's here with me today. Kai's had some big news we'll talk about, but here at the Farm Bureau office, we're located out by the airport off of Kendall Road. I'll put in a plug. My lunch today is by Madonna Inn. Great Farm Bureau members and Clinton Connie Pierce, and Kaya's family is actually related to the Madonnas. She has two uncles that married two Madonna sisters. It sounds like a Kentucky sort of story, but it's not. It's not like that. It's good. It's totally okay. And no, we just love the awesome community here, the Twisselmans, the Madonnas, and so proud to support them. That everybody go by Madonna Inn, and I've missed having breakfast there, so I'm looking forward to getting back. Some of our cattle guys like to go out for breakfast every now and then, and just happy to have our restaurants open. We don't have an agriculture industry without them, Jim. We've got to have this demand.
It's a great point. So what is that new, what are the new parts of your day? I'm sure there was before COVID operations of how you ran your life and how things went, but what does it look like today? How is your normal day run?
It's so crazy. The flow of information, as you know, has just been intense. It's so difficult because farmers have not stopped farming. And I think we'll talk about a lot of the challenges with COVID, but if there's one positive, it is that we as a community and perhaps as elected officials and regulators are more aware that, we're not making skateboards here. We're making stuff that we got to live with. Nothing wrong with skateboards. Don't take me wrong, Jim, but, food is essential. And we've seen this, what will our community look like if we had to depend on others to bring in stuff to our community. But the challenge here, as we'll talk about more, has been getting the rapidly changing information about federal assistance relief, about regulations that we're concerned may have lasting implications. But because things change day to day, just making sure we're pushing that out to all of our farmers and ranchers. And, I can't just send them same for you, Jim. You can't send them a 200-page document. So there's the information's in there. You've got to understand it and digest it. And my previous job was in Kentucky Department of Agriculture, so I know the government piece of of regulation and the role of it, why it's important for society. But y'all have got some a little bit stronger regulations in California. I don't know if y'all have noticed that. Some of our business people are probably listening and saying, well, duh, yeah. But it's been a shock to me. And it boggles my mind that there's still farmers here that can make a living. And, you know, it's not, we have this mentality of big farmer, small farmer, but a lot of these regulations, you know, only a larger farm with multiple employees could learn these new regs. They can comply with those. And it does hurt our local small farmers market scale, direct market producers. So I guess in this post-COVID world, we are concerned that, you know, some of these things may drive farmers out of business. We'll talk more about the liability issues and trying to protect our farm workers. But, you know, the government has not been through a pandemic in a long time. So it's new to them. It's new to the regulated community of agriculture. And at the same time, we have these acute present needs of our food bank can't get enough food. We can't get enough truck drivers. We can't get enough the types of commodities that are easily distributed through those systems. It's just been a logistical nightmare. And I guess that's job security. And I feel so proud of our, we still have a need for a farm bureau. That's what we're paid to do, is to educate our elected officials about what's happening at the farm level. We can visit just a little bit about, you know, our number one ag industry here is obviously the wine grapes. Right now, a lot of those tasting rooms are still closed. And I love every week we have these kind of community start guide groups with chambers. Jim, you're on those. Joel Peterson, he's always asking questions. I love that. Joel is fighting for his industry. If you're a Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance member, you're being well represented, and they are working their tails off trying to get a path forward for reopening. And right now, Jim, it's a little bit odd. What is it? The tasting rooms can only open if they have food?
Only food. So I mean, that's the crazy part about the work we're doing, you're doing, is all the rules are kind of being made on the fly because we're dealing with a pandemic. And I think one of the things we see from our side is, you know, we're thinking locally, sure, tourism, but you know, our stores are closed or reopening and having to deal with that. But isn't it, you know, we think of the farmers, but providing local even to our country, but our farmers are actually doing international stuff, right? I mean, how's that being impacted?
Absolutely. And we fail to think about that because we're so worried about right here within our borders, our local, you know, our church communities, our at-risk communities here in SLO. But agriculture is unique in this area in that you're not just feeding your local community. We're happy we're able to meet that need, but what drives this $2.5 billion ag economy is a lot of exports. So your produce that you grow here in SLO County goes on a truck, and it may go thousands of miles across the country, but there's families on the East Coast that depend on what happens here in SLO County. There's international markets like China that can make or break our farm operations here. Different commodities are experiencing different things. So for example, China is a big market and importer historically, but during COVID, we had a lot of logistical challenges, and those, you know, that transportation wasn't as active as it was before. There was issues at the ports. So number one, logistical challenges, but number two, other countries care about their people too, and they're not going to want to export product to the United States if they don't think they have enough here. So different crops are affected differently, but you know, in general, farmers need trade. It's not something that we just want to sell our local community. We love that. We love that that's a huge market for us here locally, but we could produce enough food to feed SLO County probably 2 or 3 times over. We depend on this movement of goods. There are times of year when the produce here, we can't have every commodity grown here year round. So we do rely, even in our grocery stores, on this movement of goods from Mexico, from Canada. A positive thing before COVID that kind of got lost in the COVID news was, you remember the US-Mexico-Canada alliance, the old NAFTA deal, Jim? That actually got ratified during COVID. They finally, the Canadian, I believe, Parliament approved that, and Mexico has ratified it. So we now have a new trade deal with our 2 largest trading partners for the United States. And we don't think of Canada and Mexico a lot, but that's where a lot of SLO County goods go to. And if you want to learn more about that, Jim, you can go to the County Ag Commissioner's website. I might actually have one of these dudes sitting here. They do an annual crop report, and this has got all the export destinations, and the Ag Commissioner's office does a lot of neat things, but one of the key features here in California is that each year you kind of do a census of your local agriculture, and and they do track where a lot of those farm goods move to different markets. But yes, exports are huge, but we're lucky we have this good mix of both in our community.
Yeah, well, I'm personally, I'm, again, a Los Angeles boy, so, farms to us for those things that were other places. And I've been, loved all of the contact I've had with Jeff Buckingham and you and everyone about how agriculture affects all of us. And so personally, I'm a new convert to the tally farm box religion, which is amazing if you haven't done it. But it's one of those things where I think a lot of people who've not potentially wanted to go, to their grocery store, have started to sign up for a lot of these different, and not just in vegetables, but in meat. Do you have an idea of how, ag is pivoted to be more of this direct market? Will that be a longer term piece?
Absolutely. And then another key positive is the resilience of these farms here. And just about an hour ago, I was at another company that has a similar business model to that Tally Farms, the Tally Box, which is pretty known in the community. But there's a company called Slo Veg, Rachel Hill. I think they've been on Dave Congleton's, where I heard them on the radio. But they started in 2009, and I talked to Rachel, their founder, this morning, and she says they're hiring more people. It's an exciting thing. They can't get enough locally grown produce. They're having to go out in a bigger area. So she wanted to put a plug in. If you're a farmer or know a farmer, they need more commodities right now. They are selling boxes left and right. That's sloveg.com if you want to check out. They have a real cool weekly newsletter that explains, like, this is meals you can make with this week's produce. These are things, store your tomatoes on the counter until they get really ripe. Then put them in the fridge. Stuff that I don't know. My mama knew that, Jim, but I don't remember how we stored stuff. And I'm a farm kid, but the direct model is a big deal, and I suspect it will last to some extent. Maybe not as high volume as it is today, but just my family here in Slo County, so the Twisselman Ranch, they have never I think they've been 7 generations of cattle ranchers, they've never sold directly to consumers. And so over the last 2 months, they have developed their own direct market beef, and it's a family endeavor. We've all learned together, and we got labels printed up for some beef jerky, and somebody misspelled jerky. We put an extra E in it, so we got jerky. It's a learning experience. So, farmers are having to adapt to these channels, but Twisselman Ranch beef, I know there's Larder Meat Company here in Slo. They're doing awesome things. Hearst Ranch beef is another local one we can have. So, if you're concerned about the grocery store and you really want to have that farmer connection, there's tons of those. If anybody has questions about where to find local food, please call our office, the Slo County Farm Bureau. But I think this is a positive thing that will stay with us for a while.
Well, and it goes back to a point that you made a little earlier when you were talking about, we could produce enough food for 2 to 3 times, right, Slo County, which is fabulous to know locally we're protected. Obviously, I don't think we could, as a county, support all of our farmers the way they need to, especially doing business in the state of California, which is rough. But so one of the questions I think would be interesting and would love to hear from you on is, we've been hearing a lot about the shortages because of potential infections in packing plants, whether that's meat or vegetable. Has that affected our region? What's going on with that?
It is something in the back of everyone's mind. And I know Dr. Bornstein has been reaching out to our ag commissioner, and the ag commissioner has been reaching out to us. We've been reaching out to our members, our labor contractors, our farmers that employ a lot more of agriculture workers. So it is very concerning. And right now we've not had a huge issue here. There's been, I know Monterey had a few issues that we were watching closely in Salinas, but the shortage of meat is by and large because there are not enough people coming to the meat plant to work to process those things. And that's a mixture of they don't know that they're essential and that they can come to work. Maybe they're not comfortable coming back to work. So that has caused issues, and that ripples back through the food supply chain. And that's why you see some of that limitations at the grocery store, where normally you could buy all the tri-tip you wanted, but I noticed a lot of grocery stores have a limit on the number of packages. So we're concerned about that always in agriculture, in that it doesn't matter how good a job we do planting and the seed selection and the soils we have and the sunshine and the weather, ain't nothing happening without the workers. They are the backbone of this industry. My family grew up, we were raised tobacco. We had H-2A migrant workers, and They were like our family. We really made sure that they were a part of our, food safety conversation about quality. And that is not a new concept, Jim, to the ag industry. And if you grow romaine lettuce or leafy greens, things that don't get cooked, don't have a kill step, it's all about these hands. It's about hand washing, teaching your employees. And so that has been helpful in a sense for this COVID deal because they're used to food safety. And this is just a heightened level. But, there's some things that you just cannot get 6 feet apart from when you're packing vegetables on a line. If I'm in a bottling plant, I've got to have someone so close. So I think we're valuing these workers, and it's a little bit ironic. And where I come from in Kentucky, amnesty is a dirty word. That's something that my political backgrounds, I remember the people that I've worked for in the past in government, they don't like that. But here, I've come to learn the very difference of agriculture in this nation depends on these folks. And I think California has done a lot to lead the nation in minimum wage requirements and worker safety and hygiene. But I think as a country, we don't fully appreciate what happens here in California does reverberate across the nation. And these workers, if they're not healthy, you're going to see it at the grocery store because there won't be food there to you to eat.
Yeah, it's an amazing point that you made there. And it really is, again, I was lucky a little bit that even though I lived in LA, my aunt's family was in Santa Maria. So I got to see where, food came from, that it didn't just grow in that refrigerated section.
People think it's out back. They think it just pops out of the back of the grocery store. And there was one guy that wrote a letter. He said, I can't believe y'all kill animals, because why don't y'all do the humane thing and make it at the grocery store like most good people do? So they don't make it at the grocery store, it just stores there. But
Well, and this is why it's so important that we have conversations like this. I know there's not going to be a lot of folks here in SLO County that we have to tell, but when others see this, it's what you just said, what California does in the Central Valley here in the Central Coast and raising and harvesting food does impact our country, but also the whole world. And when you look at a $2.5 billion industry for our economy, how important it is that we protect these, we get the workers, that we do all these things. So your job, not an easy one, certainly, but I know there's been some crazy we've had some pivots over the last days, even on the major events, looking at the local ordinances and the mid-state fair announcement. How do some of these things that we're looking at on hemp ordinance and the mid-state fair, how is that going to impact local farmers and ranchers?
Sure. So do the mid-state fair first. It's very personal to our family here in SLO because Twisselman's, my fiance's dad, Joel, is the livestock superintendent. So it's a big part of his, year is the mid-state fair. And so these kids that have worked, for months on their animals and feeding them every day and mucking the stalls. And, a lot of people that are listening to this, I'm sure, showed animals at the fair, and FFA, forage, and other local youth. The fair is something that puts agriculture kind of on a stage for at least a day. We all take notice of the ag resources we have. So just the fact that the fair is not happening this year is devastating to our local economy. I mean, Paso Robles, obviously, but really the region's economy. We worry about, these kids, are they going to lose interest in agriculture because they don't have this big venue that's an awesome thing? Historically, there's been a lot of businesses are able to support those livestock auctions, and we worry because the economy is so terrible right now that there won't be that community support dollars. But I'm optimistic. We've got a smart group at the fair board, a lot of veterans of going through tough times, and I think they'll figure out a way forward. But it's not as easy as setting up a Zoom call and having a fair auction. I said that, Jim. I was like, well, don't they just get cameras out there? We'll all help out. But it's a much more logistical, difficult thing. And these groups of 10 we're currently under for our shelter at home orders and distancing requirements. It's just going to be quite difficult to get those animals and the kids and their parents and their brothers and sisters handled at the fairgrounds. So we're sending a letter with the cattlemen and cattlewomen here to the governor and all of our state assembly members and senators to let them know that our fair here, historically does not get, as I understand it, does not get state funding because it has its own revenue source of these awesome concerts that we hold. But now, there's a lot of employees that they're government employees, and the fair cannot keep paying them if there's not income, and they've not been able to have all the other events that kind of help sustain the fair throughout the year. So Obviously got a change in leadership at the Mid-State Fair, which is, a very difficult time to be trying to take the helm of this organization, but I'm confident we'll get through it. It just, it stinks for the kids, I think, more than else. We're worried about that. But, safety first, we get it. I know there's going to be a lot of pushback in the community, and I am glad, Jim, you probably are too, that you're not an elected official right now. This is not a fun time to be trying to do all this mess, and you can't please everybody. And same at Farm Bureau. And a good example of difficult issues is hemp. So May the 5th, we had and for background, the county had an existing urgency ordinance passed spring of last year that basically put a pause, as the supervisors called it, on industrial hemp cultivation here in the county. In the months that followed, we had a big debate amongst our Farm Bureau members. We had certain parts of our county that just didn't want, they had a lot of frustration with cannabis odors, and that was kind of bled over to hemp. And those that don't know, Jim, I'll test you, Jim. What is the difference between hemp and marijuana?
If I understand it correctly, it's the THC content. So correct. Same plant, just whether it has the drug part of it. So the hemp by federal law is 0.3%. So not 3%, but 0.3% THC, or 0.03, I guess is a better way to say it. 0.3%. If it's above that, it is considered marijuana. And, in California, it would just be, marijuana subject to all your state laws. But where I came from in Kentucky, hemp was a pretty big deal. The market has changed dramatically, and it changes every year like all ag commodities. But hemp is so new and a little bit of a gold rush mentality. So we'll talk about what the county's done here. But the bigger national market is the Food and Drug Administration still considers one of the extracts from the cannabis plant. You can get it from marijuana and hemp. And that's CBD. A lot of folks may have heard of cannabidiol, CBD. One of my friends, Megan Souza, has an awesome store here in Slo County. She maybe has 2 stores now, sells CBD. So it's a big deal to a lot of people. But you called the FDA, their position is still that CBD cannot be sold over the counter. So there's a prescription drug for that. And not going into the weeds, the national market was anticipating a relaxation of that position by FDA so that it could be sold over the counter. Think of fish oil supplements. You can go to your doctor and get a prescription fish oil, or you can go to Rite Aid and get an over-the-counter one. That is the hope of the industry, that these 2 pathways will open up and we can get a new crop going for our farmers. Unfortunately, here in Slo County, there was a lot of concern about the odor. In farming, we have a lot of things that stink. What comes out the backside of an animal stinks. Garlic and onions stink. So pesticides even can stink. When you work a field, you create dust that's, it's a nuisance to somebody living next door. I guess here, this is my opinion, not Farm Bureau opinion, but California has a very rarefied sniffers. Y'all are very concerned about odors. And somebody was telling me there's a person that calls into the county and complains about, they live next to a sandwich shop here in Slo, and they said, every morning my house reeks of bacon, cooking bacon. I thought, well, that's the best smell you can ask for. But it's just different, and I get it. And if I had a $10 million wedding venue and I had some stinky stuff next door to me, I absolutely get it. And so for Farm Bureau, our job is to bring all these issues to the forefront, have the discussion, show both sides. And anytime you don't please everybody, Jim, in my mind, it's a mark of a good effort to find compromise. But we were quite surprised what happened in May 5th. The supervisors voted 4-1 to basically ban hemp in Slo County. And they won't call it a ban. They'll characterize it as a highly restricted. But for example, if you had a 400-acre site, and so that's the new minimum, you have to have 400 acres, which is hard enough. But on top of that, there's a 2,000-foot setback from every side of your property line, and which essentially leaves you with half an acre in the middle of your 400-acre site. So, right or wrong, that's a ban on hemp. And so we just want to be honest about what we're telling our members. And it's unfortunate, people that had investment in it. I think long-term, we never want to screw up our existing commodities like wine grapes with other new crops. But, I've not seen evidence of that yet. There's been discussion that there could be a taint from the odor, for those that don't know, onto the wine grapes. But if that happens, we certainly need to look at that in terms of a zoning situation. But you got me on the hemp tangent, Jim. I know I've rattled on here. I think it's so interesting, and it's a conversation every time you and I sit down, we have lunch. it's always the first thing I bring up because it's so incredibly confusing and so difficult because I had never smelled cut broccoli before. But man, when you get near a cut broccoli field,
You know it.
You know it. Like you're within miles of that. And I get it. Like, and it's interesting where we're starting to see those communities come together and, you know, you get these conflicts. Like you said, it's no fun being an elected official right now, I'll tell you, and especially when you have to deal with these issues. So, you know, we're always so thankful that you're there kind of trying to help bring the parties to at least some, and obviously there will obviously have to be more work still on the hemp and cannabis and how to get all that grown together. And yeah, it's really crazy. And as I know we're getting close to the end, and I just can't, you know, let it go without getting some good information from, first of all, did I see your fiance in some very high profile media this over the past couple of days?
Jim, I'm glad you interviewed me now because a couple of years from now, I may be a kept man. I'll be retired, and I'm not going to have to worry about all this hemp madness. No, I'm grateful to have a job. But my fiance, Kai, is my sugar mama, hopefully someday soon. And she's an awesome person, first of all. If y'all don't know her, she's super creative and talented. And you can find her at Coach Kaya on the Instagrams, or I don't know which one it is, Facebook something. But Kaya Twisselman's her name. And we're getting married this coming May. So thank goodness we didn't schedule the wedding for this May. We've been in trouble. But she's a Twisselman for right now. She'll be a Burchett here in a couple more months. But Kaya is awesome story. She actually lost 125 or 30, I can't keep up with it, pounds over the last year. And if you don't have a video on, I'm not the sveltest of people. So it hadn't spilled over on me yet, Jim, but we're all doing our part. We had a lot more salads. I got salad for lunch today, actually. So, but Kai was on Good Morning America. She has a background with cattle ranch. Obviously, she's a cattle ranch family. And so she got hooked up with some People Magazine folks. And so if you got People Magazine, flip over. I think Kai's not in here. I asked her what page it's on, but she's featured in People Magazine, which led to Good Morning America, which led to, I think, Access Hollywood's next week. Women's Fitness is next month. So I may have to retire and just start keeping her Twitters up. And I don't know if Twitter's a thing anymore. But
well, yeah, maybe the president will end it after today. But no, I think you're gonna have to keep up now.
No.
You know, she's gonna be like leaving you in the dust. You gotta. What are you doing? You had a photo though credited, right?
Yes. So all those lovely shots you see of Kaya on the Instagram, the sunny Madonna mountain backdrop, and that's a lover's eye. That's me. I'm working that camera, and that's the best Christmas gift I ever got her because it's paid itself. I ought to get credit for my forethought of getting a camera that would make money for us as a couple. So I'm just tickled to death that she's doing that. And no, Kaya is super talented, smart, and then, you know, I loved Kentucky, Jim, and I wouldn't have moved out here for any old yahoo. It took a special woman to pry me out of my beloved Commonwealth of Kentucky, and I think people are like, oh, I get it now. And so she's up to, I think she went from 4,000 Instagrams to 17,000. I think she's at right now. It's just nuts. So hopefully, Jim, we're going to get a bourbon company to sponsor her tweets, and I'll be able to do a plug. So before I forget, Jim, we always like to talk a little bourbon.
Yeah.
If you're going to the store today after work for a good weekend relaxation, I recommend 3 bourbons for sipping. And if you're putting Coca-Cola in it, don't just get whatever you want. I don't even want to hear about it. But the top 3 bourbons for about $45, $50, you're going to look for something that's 10 years old. So that's a good taste point. You know, bourbon, the older the better. There's awesome bourbon here I've been trying in Slo, but long story short, Bullet 10-year, Eagle Rare, and Russell's Reserve. Bullet 10-year, Eagle Rare, and Russell's Reserve. Those will treat you well. Put it on ice. Have a good time.
Yeah, that's thank you, because I've got set up a bar. I got my bourbon, and I'm like, okay, I gotta find out from Brent. Every time we go sit down, we always look at the menu. All right, what are we gonna grab from here? Exactly. And I love you had a comment once. You're like, hey, I don't think everybody knows this exists. So like here, it's like 25. Keep that
deal. I probably shouldn't have told that. I'm going to go to Bivmo.
Yeah, well, FYI, I didn't share the one we were talking about, and I'm not gonna create a run on that one for us. But I think it was great. It's so cool to hear, your experience on everything you're bringing here and seeing what you're doing. You're doing some amazing stuff. I think this would be awesome. I think we could have like a daily, weekly show on this. You are a fabulous time to talking. Really, I know we only scratched the surface of all the things going on in agriculture. And I know the Farm Bureau and hopefully all the farmers recognize how how lucky they are to have you in this because you're doing amazing work. So thank you so much for eating lunch with us today. We hope to see everyone next week, same time, same place. We're going to talk with Congressman Salud Carbajal about what it's like in DC these days, maybe even more complex than SLO County Farm Bureau. How has that COVID changed the process of policy making and what his own life has been like sheltering? So if you have an idea for future working lunch guest, send us an email at SLO Chamber at slochamber.org. Thanks for everyone tuning in and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks again, Brent.
Thank you guys. Enjoyed it.